Okay, so another thing I would suggest, and that if you're going to do any kind of worthwhile photography at all, you're going to have these filters, okay? This was the filter from Polar Pro that I had been using from the start. What I noticed is that somehow, some way, and I'm extremely careful with these lenses, one of the lenses has a some kind of smudge, or not a scratch, but more like some sort of defect. And I don't know where it came from, because when I pick these lenses up, I pick them up from the edges, and every time I pick them up, I always use, it comes with one of these, is I always wipe it very carefully inside and out. How one of these got messed up, I don't know. Okay, these are pretty expensive. So what I've done was recently is I went and spent the extra money to go get, and I bought, I think I ordered this one. This one I recently went and got at Best Buy. This one was quite a, it was like $115, $120, something like that. As you notice, it has a lot more lenses with it. And I'm going to keep the receipt, and if I see any problems with the lens, if it's scratched up or if it starts having any kind of defect on the lens itself, I'm going to take it back. I wasn't 100% sure if I was the one who caused an issue with these, but I just could not imagine how I would have, because I'm so careful with them. So on these, you have a lot more selection, and there's a instruction card in here that tells you how and when to use each one of these lenses, okay? So these are recommended. You have to use one of these in order to get your settings, your ISO, and your other settings in your camera. You're going to have to get one of these in order to make sure that your footage is crystal clear. I'll cover that in another segment, but you have to have one of these ND filters when you shoot in very bright conditions, especially because you won't be able to, the settings that you need to set the camera to are not going to work the way it needs to if you don't have filters. And we'll get into that a little bit more. There's tons of research about that on the internet as well. There's a lot more videos that cover that. Okay? There's a few more points that I want to make. Is you may want to reconsider if you're kind of riding the fence on whether or not you're going to get a drone. Okay? You really need to consider why you're getting it. It seems like monthly, and I'm shooting this video on the first day of 2019, okay? Since I've had this about a year now, the restrictions on drones are getting tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher each quarter or each month, because of so many different people flying in places they shouldn't fly. You probably have watched where drones have hit planes, which is extremely prohibited. Really, you can't even take off your DJI Go app. Most of the time won't even let you take off in that kind of a zone. But of course, you could take off in a non-restricted zone and then fly over to a restricted zone. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is, by the time you decide to get one, the restrictions may be so severe that you may not be able to even fly your drone. And if you do, you may be so restricted that you may decide it's not even worth it. On top of the government restrictions, local restrictions, your own community, your own neighbors, anytime they see a drone even close to their house or even in the vicinity of their residence, they start griping and complaining about it. People just are scared to death of it. Okay, they think that you're always looking in somebody's window, you're over their property, or there's every kind of excuse. Most of them are just scared to death of just something flying around. And so I didn't realize this when I first bought it. I knew that there were some restrictions, but I may have reconsidered even buying this one if I would have known how many different restrictions there are. It's just becoming more and more restricted as the months progress. So you may need to really, really, really consider why you're buying it, what you plan to do with it, and is it worth it if the restrictions get so bad that you may just be so limited on where you can fly it may not even be worth it. Okay? I know bigger cities, a lot more restrictions. You always have to fly it below 400 feet. I have broken that 400 feet barrier several times, but I'm scared every time I do it. I'm scared that the app is going to report something to some agency and it's going to be reported and things like that. So you just have to consider whether or not you really need one and what you're using it for. Okay, I'm going to touch on a few other things that I've mentioned earlier before that you don't want to fly inside. You want to make sure that you're using a GPS mode when you do fly so that the satellites are watching your drone, and your drone is very stable during that point because it knows exactly where your drone's at and it keeps it stable. Your drone is very still when you let off the controls, and that is the most safest mode to fly in is GPS mode. Okay, you want to fly high and above any obstacles. You want to have a good takeoff and a good landing spot, as open as possible, and for sure you want to make sure that your remote is in line of sight of your drone while you're flying. I made one critical mistake that almost cost me my drone, and I had no idea that it was going to do this. One time I was flying some mountain shots, and I may include it in this video while I'm talking, if I can figure it out on my editor. I was flying, I was down on the ground, I was flying about a quarter of a mile away from me at a mountain, and I was taking some beautiful shots. As soon as the drone went around the backside of the mountain, at the tallest part of the mountain, I was flying pretty high. But as soon as my drone went on the other side of the mountain, everything went black. My screen went black. I didn't have any video. I couldn't tell what my drone was doing. It wouldn't give me any data. Well, luckily, the drone was smart enough to realize to come back around the way that it came originally, and as soon as it came back around the mountain, it immediately reconnected. Of course, by that time, I was so scared and shaken, I was upset that I immediately brought it back to me, and I called it a day because I was done. So you need to make sure that you can see your drone, or at least you're going to lose sight of your drone because of the fact that your drone is so small and it's in such a big sky. Okay, if you fly it out, a couple of thousand feet away from you, but you need to make sure that the drone and the remote can see each other. There's not huge obstacles in the way, like a mountain or like a big building. Trees and stuff, I haven't had any issues with trees. But if you get solid mass objects in between you and the drone, you're probably going to have some problems, is what I'm thinking. So make sure you do that as well. You want to make sure that you get into your menu options and set those to make sure that it returns back to home properly at the right distance, the right height. There's lots and lots of videos about how to set all your settings. It's pretty complex. I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty complex. All the different camera settings, video settings, the drone settings themselves, all the different, there's just page after page after page of different settings. which was overwhelming at first, but I watched a ton of videos, and a lot of people have helped me just by those videos. So it was very beneficial. Okay, you probably have already started to wonder what these Velcro strips are right here. Well, of course, I'm really infatuated with all kinds of different lighting, and there's like all kinds of video that people have added brackets, people have added LEDs, people have added, they have LED propellers. So I'll add a description in this video about this this strobe pack right here. Okay, this is like $30 something. This strobe pack right here is one of the brightest lights that you would ever imagine. Okay, and even though it may or may not be allowed to fly at night, sometimes I do actually do it. Okay, so what I did is I have actually two of these. This one here does red, green, and white. Okay, the actual red part is actually burned out, so I was kind of disappointed about it. This strobes on here is very, 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 very bright. You can see this literally it's unbelievable how far you can see this in the night sky when you're flying. It looks awesome. Okay, this has a couple of different modes. It has strobe. It has all the strobes flashing at once, and I'm not even sure if you can even tell that on this. It has just solid, which is all the white and the green, and it would have been red if the red would have worked. So this is just it looks cool. Okay. But once like I said before, I'm not really 100% sure that you can even fly these things at night. There's so many different restrictions. But when I do, different times, I'll put this strobe pack on there, and it works out great. It's rechargeable. And you can charge it right off of your base that you have that comes with the combo pack. You can just plug this charger in here and charges it. You have your different stations. You have multiple different connections here that you can, USB connections that you can use, and it just looks sharp. And so I mainly just did it just to show out. I don't fly so much at night anymore. But occasionally I do like to get some night shots. Yeah, if you want a description on where to buy that and where I bought it, and I bought it offline. Most of my accessories I bought off Amazon, of course. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And once again, I don't sit here and endorse or recommend that you fly at night. But I'm very careful where I fly, and I watch what I do. And I've never had any issues. So, yeah. So, anyway, guys, I think that's about it. If you have any questions or concerns or comments, suggestions, or anything of that nature, you feel free to put it in the comment section. You can also email me. My email will be in the description of the video itself. But it's been nice. It's been cool. And I hope you've learned something from it. And this is my first tutorial video on Mavic Pro. I've got some scenery videos out there on Scotty Carp is my channel on YouTube, and I've got some other miscellaneous videos that I've done. So this is the first one I've done on the Mavic Pro, and I hope to make more videos if I get some decent responses. So. Anyway, once again, I'll respond to you if you add a comment or email me. You guys have a safe and happy 2019. See you next time.